All right, guys. It is 1:30 Eastern Time, so we're going to get going, and I'd like to thank you all for calling into this month's Thriving Thursday. We're going to be talking about some plant-based diets and some budget-friendly ways to try to be able to do that. Before we get started, I just want to do a couple reminders. First is because this is in a listen-only mode. If you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand. We will let Pat get through the presentation and then take all questions at the end of the program. I also wanted to remind anybody that if you haven't done so already, take a look at the emails that have come out about the Outbreak Wellness Challenge that's coming out. It should be a lot of fun, so hopefully you have registered for that. And I also want to let you know about August's Thriving Thursday, which is going to be helping us all understand how to be more savvy healthcare consumers. A lot of times the onus is placed on us to make sure that we're, figuring out how to do that, but we don't always have the tools and resources to do it. So the Thriving Thursday for next month will be working on that. So I am going to, without further ado, we're so excited to have Pat Salzer back with us. She's been so generous with her time in doing some of these presentations for us. Pat is with Excellus Blue Cross Blue Shield, and she is a workplace wellness consultant, and she works out of the Utica region, and she has a degree in dietetics and management from SUNY Oneonta, and she went on to work at St. Luke's Hospital and Heritage Healthcare Center, and she was a clinical nutrition manager. Um, so she was drawn to the world of wellness because she really wanted to consult with employer groups to help provide workplace wellness opportunities and some proactive steps towards improving health and helping people have a better idea on what tools and resources are available to them. So she and her husband currently live in Clinton, New York, and she's a food and fitness enthusiast, and she loves socializing and cooking and physical fitness and traveling. So we are thrilled once again to have Pat joining us. Pat, what I'm going to do right now is I am going to click my magic button and pass the baton over to you. So if you could just let me know if that works for you.
Okay, and not yet. I see the Thriving Thursdays.
Oh, it hasn't, has it been switching?
Not yet.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
I can see on it who is talking, whether it's you or me. Oh, I see something. Yeah,
There we
we
go.
are good.
There you go. Now see if you're able to go ahead and drive the bus.
Yeah,
Excellent.
good. All right. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to be back here to talk to you about one of my favorite topics, food. And I just love this picture too with all this produce on it. So we're going to talk about plant-based diets, which can mean different things to different people. And what it really comes down to is produce and of eating healthy. And so there's so many different ways to define eating healthy. But one thing that all those different diets do have in common is you can't go wrong with more vegetables because it is something that many of us are lacking in our diet. And there's so many different diets out there, and it seems like some of them really contradict with each other. And I know people feel very, very strongly about their eating habits. And I had heard a speaker once say it's easier to get somebody to change their religion than to change their beliefs about eating. So this is all about food, all about produce. So with that, we're going to have some fun with words. If you blank, if you all about your health, you will not blank your nose about this idea. Have you blank thinking about making some changes to your diet? Blank give you some ideas. You can't blank feeling healthy and strong. So blank, don't blank this. Blank you glad you are here. If you care at all about your diet, You will not turn up your nose about this idea. Have you been thinking about making some changes to your diet? Let us give you some ideas. You can't beat feeling healthy and strong, so please don't squash this. Orange, you glad you are here. I know, a little corny, but fun. What are some of the different diets? The different types of vegetarian diets. There are those that are considered lacto-ovo. They do consume eggs and dairy, but they avoid meat, fish, and poultry. Lacto-vegetarian, dairy but not eggs, and again, no meat, fish, or poultry. Ovo, eating the eggs but not the dairy. Vegan, no animal products at all, including gelatin or honey, because they ultimately do come from an animal. So those are some of the different types. There's also a pescatarian who would eat seafood but no meat or poultry. A flexitarian is someone who eats mostly vegetarian but occasionally will have some meat, poultry, or seafood. So some of you might fall into some of these different categories. What we do know is it's good to eat food, not too much of it, and mostly plant based. That that is something that all those diets do have in common. Why eat a diet that's high in plant based foods? There's so many different health reasons for it. It reduces our risk of stroke, heart attack, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, obesity, and some of the different cancers. And we were talking about cancer last time. It can help reverse and prevent heart disease. These are foods that are anti inflammatory, and we know inflammation is a big concern with our body. It can be easier to maintain a healthy weight because these plant rich foods are high in fiber, they're filling, you get a lot of volume with them. Where let's say steak or cheese is very condensed with the calories. And it's so easy to get in the vitamins and minerals that you need on a plant rich diet. So those are some of the different health reasons for this. Now I do know of some people that are vegetarians, but they don't eat vegetables. And we see this sometimes with teenagers that they might eat pretzels and bagels, but not really foods that offer much nutrition in them and not high in plant based foods. So that's a concern that I have. There's some different candy that's considered vegan, but we're not really considering that as part of this diet. Besides the health benefits, also for the environment, knowing that it takes less water used to grow plants and that there's less pollution. Some people do it for the health, some people do it for the environment, some people do it for ethical reasons. So, whatever works best for you. What I would like, though, is to reimagine your dinner plate. So, for somebody that does have a lot of meat with their meal, the plate can still be full, but it's kind of changing the composition of what that dinner plate looks like. So here's our plate, lots of vegetables. And that's really the recommendation anyway, because we do say strive for 5 vegetables and fruits a day, and that's cups. So if half of your dish right there is vegetables, it's a you're on your way for that. And then with that, you get that volume of food. So for some people, their vegetables are the parsley and orange garnish. So I'm talking a lot more than that. The other half of the plate is consisted of protein and whole grains. So the protein can be tofu, it can be kidney beans, chickpeas, the whole grains. We're looking at brown rice, whole grain pasta, quinoa. There's so many different whole grains to have, and the whole grains give you some more fiber too, and you do get really protein from all of these foods as well. So that's a different way to reimagine your dinner plate. So if I was to look at, let's say, some stir-fried vegetables, so maybe or sautéed or roasted or grilled, and whether it's peppers, zucchini, onions, eggplant, corn on the cob, and then possibly some black beans for the protein and some brown rice for the whole grain, and then some salsa on it and some avocado. Here are more ideas for the protein food. So the tofu, which is a soybean curd, different beans. So whether it's chickpeas, cannellini beans, kidney beans, black-eyed peas, black beans, pinto beans, refried beans. There's so many options. Nuts or nut butter, so peanut butter, almond butter, sunflower butter. It seems like almost every nut can be made into a butter as well, or to have a sprinkle of nuts on your stir fry. Quinoa, it is a whole grain and it does give you protein as well. It is an ancient Inca grain that is gluten free. The big thing with quinoa is you need to rinse it off first before you cook it because it does have kind of this bitter coating on it, but easy enough to rinse that off in a colander with this real small hole in it. And then so easy to cook. It's typically um, half the amount of quinoa is the water, and you get the water boiling. Add the quinoa, turn it down till it simmers for about 15 minutes or so, and then let it sit for a few minutes. Quinoa is one of my favorite whole grains. It's also high protein, and it's something you can make extra of and then have some leftovers over the next few days. And you can even freeze if you have extra that you've cooked. And then it could be in a salad. You can have it hot. You can have it cold. You can do it as kind of a cereal. It's very, very versatile. What other whole grains can you have? The brown rice, the oats, the quinoa really goes in both categories. Bulgur, that's in tabbouleh. It's often the base of tabbouleh. And then I know some people, if they are following a gluten-free diet, they substitute the quinoa instead of the bulgur in their tabbouleh. And then whole wheat products such as the bread, the rice, the pasta. Another comment too, oats are considered a whole grain, and you could do the 1 minute oats or the old fashioned that takes 5 minutes, or some people really like those steel cut oats. Oats are just so inexpensive. So this is a way to eat healthy on a budget too. If you buy a big container of those oats, and probably 42 ounces or so, you'll get many servings out of that. And typically, what I do for my breakfast is bring in half a cup of the oatmeal, and then I get some boiling water from our cafeteria, put it in the microwave. I keep an eye on it because it's in the microwave. And if you aren't watching it before you know it, it can turn into kind of this wallpaper glue in the microwave and make a mess. But it does not take long at all. And then I personally like to add a spoonful of almond butter or peanut butter to it, some fruit, lots of cinnamon, some chia seeds, some flax seeds. Very versatile. You can also have it savory too. So some people put sauteed mushrooms on it. They use it as more of a base, such as a rice. So it can be sweet, it could be savory, whatever works best for you with that. So oats are something to keep in mind. And I've even had it is oats that were cooked and then done as more of the basis for a salad too, with lots of vegetables on it. So with many of these, you can have them really for different meals. I've done a brown rice cereal, so cooking brown rice, adding some soy milk or almond milk to it, cutting up a banana, some cinnamon. So these are very versatile. What is a whole foods plant-based diet? So whole foods is another key part of this. And when I was talking about things like pretzels or candies that are vegetarian or vegan, they're not really considered a whole food. So with this concept, it's really limiting those processed foods. So going with foods that are more in their natural state. Now, some foods that are processed are still okay because really oats are processed. It's not like they grow exactly that way in the field. Or something like a canned tomato has been processed to get them into the can, or canned beans. And the beauty of those is they're just so convenient and so easy. and inexpensive. And then if you buy stack up on your canned beans and then rinse them off to rinse off some of the extra sodium as well, that makes this affordable and quick and efficient too. So really, we're looking for limiting those processed foods. So that's more the cookies and the crackers, potato chips, things like that. Cut down on the saturated fat, which you would do if you are following some type of plant-based diet because you're not having the butter or the fat that comes from meat or from dairy. Reduce alcohol intake. So even though it ultimately comes from the grape, but to really reduce the intake of it. Unsweeten your diet, so less of the added sugars because it doesn't really offer you any nutrition. So just something to keep in mind, and those could be some excess extra calories. Watch the salt intake. And then it really varies with people if they're salt sensitive or not, but just to be careful of how much salt is used from the salt shaker or from some of those canned foods or processed foods or from condiments too. So let's say ketchup will have quite a bit of sodium in it, but if you were to cut up a fresh tomato, that will not. Nix the refined grains. So going for more of those whole grains. And so not as much of, let's say, the white rice or the regular pasta, but more the whole grain. And instead of, let's say, white bread, going for those whole grain breads. A little bit more about whole food versus processed food. An apple is our first choice. It comes in that natural state. You get to chew it, you get the skin, you get the fiber, and before you know it, it will be apple season. What's somewhat processed would be applesauce because it's been broken down. Now, an apple toaster pastry is definitely processed, and it's not that fruit delivery system that I had in mind. So you'll see it from the most natural state to a highly processed state. Another example, strawberries, and they have been so good. Natural state, that's our first choice. Strawberry preserves are processed. An idea is too, if you can use fresh fruit as your jam or your jelly more than using the preserves or jam, and you get in lots more nutrition that way. You're not getting in the added sugar. Now, something like gelatin, which I know people that follow a vegan diet would not have anyway, but that is definitely processed food, and there's really no strawberries in strawberry gelatin. Another example, edamame, the whole soybeans, which are really fun to eat. You eat the pod that's inside, not that skin, it's very fibrous. So you can buy these fresh. Typically, you buy these frozen. You could buy them out of the shell also, but if you buy the whole edamame like they show here, you put it in your mouth and you just kind of grit your teeth and then pull out the pod, pull out the skin, and those pods pop out. Delicious. Now, something like tofu is somewhat processed. And so, just something to keep in mind. It can certainly play a role, but it's not going to be as much of a whole food as that tofu would be compared to, let's say, frozen veggie burgers that have soy ingredients in them. And I know many people make their own veggie burgers too, or might use mushrooms as a base and walnuts, uh, roasted red peppers, asparagus, and combine different ingredients like that and maybe use this flaxseed mixture as a way to keep it all together, to bind it together. The whole idea is if it came from a plant, to eat it. If it was made in a plant, to keep that in mind. So that's one mantra to have too is whether this is something to encourage more of in your diet or maybe less of. Did it come from a plant or was it made in a plant? Let's talk a little bit about fiber. we're aiming for at least 25 grams of fiber a day, which can be very easy to do if you're eating lots of produce. And we know it's good for our heart because it helps lower our cholesterol level. And it's also good for our waistline because it's so satisfying and filling. There are different types of fibers. There's the soluble fiber, and some of these I've already talked about. So the oats, the apples, many of the other produce foods listed here, besides flaxseed, beans, and dried peas. Insoluble fiber are more of your whole grains and some of the vegetables, and they both play a role. We're looking at getting in the 25 grams. So if there is a food label, which you really won't find with your produce, but on some of your other items, the canned beans, let's say, or the flaxseed, you'll see if something's a good source or an excellent source of fiber. Now, as you increase your fiber, you want to do that gradually so your body has time to adjust to it, and also definitely increase your water intake. What about protein? It's a common question too. Oh, you don't eat any meat. How do you get your protein? It can be really easy to do because with vegetables, you get protein. For example, the spinach, a cup of spinach cooked, 7 grams right there, which is about the same as an egg. Hemp powder or hemp seed, easy to get that in and put that in your smoothie. Some of the different non-dairy milks, beverages offer the protein. The nut butters are a really easy way to get in, and the quinoa as well. Tofu, another way to get protein in. We generally eat way too much protein anyway. We don't need as much as many people do eat, and it can be very easy to get it. Lentils, 1 cup right there gives you 18 grams of protein. That's about the equivalent of 2.5 ounces of meat. Beans, whether it's the pinto, the kidney, the black beans, lots of protein, full belly, heart healthy fiber. Tempeh, that is kind of similar to the tofu, lots of protein in that. Sprouted wheat breads are delicious too, and a nice, easy way to get protein in. Buckwheat, which is gluten free, even though wheat is part of the name. And chia seeds, good protein. How do you veg out? How do you get more in? An idea is clean out your produce drawer and just get really creative and put some of that produce in your soups and your stews. You can add beans for more protein. Roasted vegetables, really nice to do in the cooler months. A little bit of olive oil, some garlic. You can add some herbs or balsamic vinegar for more flavor. But another way, clean out that produce drawer or stir fry. So whether it's on the pot on the stove, in the oven, in a wok, salads as well. And again, clean out that produce drawer, go for that rainbow of colors, get really creative. So we typically roast beets or steam them. Fresh raw beets are good too. So sometimes it's fun to eat raw what you generally cook and vice versa. If you're always cooking cauliflower, consider having it raw. If you have celery raw, you could stir fry it for a change. And then fruit is nature's candy. So whether you add it to cereal, a salad, a smoothie, you snack on it, you cut some up and have it in the refrigerator ready to go. Have fun, whether you're using cauliflower as an alternative to chicken wings or for pizza crust. Kale is so versatile in chips and smoothies and burgers. Incorporating it into the vegetarian meatloaf I talked about or your spaghetti sauce. Go apple picking. Locavores are people that tend to eat food that's more um, local, closer to where they live. So when you think about the farmers market and some of your farm stands, and then there's a website, localharvest.org, to get some more ideas. I do want to spend a couple minutes too talking about how you can eat healthy and also save money, and not just the money of your health, because to be expensive is sick, but wasting food is really expensive. So sometimes we have the best intentions in the world and we don't buy 1 bag of spinach, we buy 3. And if it starts to turn into spinach soup in the refrigerator before you get to eat it, you probably have over purchased. So it comes down to doing meal planning. So you have an idea of when are you home, when will you be cooking, when will you be eating at home, so you can buy what you need and realistically eat. Now, let's say that spinach starts to turn, you can cook it up and freeze it. I bought a huge container of mesclun greens recently, more than I was really able to eat, but I just sautéed it down and it was delicious. If you buy what's on sale and what's in season, generally if it's in season, the price is better, the taste will be better. Maybe there's some things that you could grow yourself too, whether it's herbs or a small garden, and then get really creative with those leftovers so that's not money that's been wasted. So when you think about what you had for dinner and how can you transform that into lunch the next day, if you roasted or grilled a lot of vegetables, could you put that on a baked potato the next day and get another meal out of that? And then more and more people are doing where they order their groceries online and then they're either delivered or they pull up to the store and they're brought out to them. One thought with that is curbside pickup curbs temptation, because sometimes we have the best intentions in mind until we go to the store and then everything looks so good, especially if you're hungry. So those are some different ways to save money and save your health. And it's so good if we can let food be our medicine, where really food is our drug to some extent. So at this point, I want to see what questions you have or comments, or if somebody wants to share what they will work on based on this information. I would love to hear that.
Pat, it's Sarah. One of the things as you were talking, besides that, all my good intentions, I just can't get over beets. I've tried them, I just can't get over them. But that being said, I love the idea of freezing the spinach. I hadn't even thought about that one because usually we do buy a lot of spinach, and then it is turning into that nasty experiment in my refrigerator. And so that is one that I will definitely be trying.
Good, right? Whether you freeze the spinach, you freeze the quinoa, you open up a can of, let's say, tomato paste, you can freeze the rest. Or if you made pesto, you could put that in ice cube trays and freeze and have sections of pesto. So your freezer can really be your friend with this, and it's another way to save some money.
Yeah, no, those are great ideas. Do I am looking to see if there are any other questions at the moment. Um, it does not appear as though anybody either has their hands up or has a question. So what I would suggest is if there is anybody that has a question when we're done, or if you think about it at another time, please don't hesitate to email me at ghmwellness@gatehousemedia.com, and we will get you. I will get the question to Pat, and she will answer the question for you.
I'd be
Pat,
glad
is there
to.
anything else? Yeah, wonderful. Is there anything else that you wanted to share before we let people start pondering how they're going to plan their next healthy meal?
Yes, if they can fill out that feedback form too.
Yes, yes. Thank you for mentioning that. So at the end, there will be a survey for you to fill out with just a little bit of thoughts from the presentation, and that always helps us put together future presentations and expand on your interests and work towards making things better.
Thank you,
So
everybody,
that
for your time. Enjoy your dinner.
Thank you guys. Thank you very much, Pat. I really appreciate it, and thank you very much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Bye bye.
Bye.